account for my 3 Sundays. Sundays 3 sijakuwa na nyinyi. Ya 3 kwenda nyuma, we went home, tulishiriki nyumbani with my family. Ya 2 kutoka nyuma, I accompanied pastor in Murang'a mahali alikuwa ahubiri. Last Sunday I had traveled kidogo. So pastor, I wanted to account for my 3 Sundays. Yeah. Sini mzuri? Nisiulizwe nilikuwa wapi na sijaambia baba yetu. So today I have very few minutes because I want to speak to you about a topic which probably I'm the least to talk about this in the kingdom. It's about prospering in the kingdom. Prospering? Lazima tuongee. Ni kubarikiwa ukiwa bado unasema Yesu ni Bwana. Si ndio? Because we have seen prosperity out there, and we cannot relate with the kingdom, how some people have prospered. And we have also seen people prospering na bado wakisema Yesu ni Bwana, si ndio? But many a times when this topic comes up in churches, it has begun with giving. It has begun with giving. But if it begins and ends with giving, we are standing on one foot. Tunasimama na mguu mmoja. Kama kubarikiwa kwako is all about first you give so that you get, we are standing with one foot. So the idea of just give and you'll be blessed or you will prosper is what we may call a scam out there. And it has actually drowned many Christians. So I'm the least probably to talk about this, and so I have very few minutes, and you'll give us a few verses so that we go together. Now, to prosper, we must do something with our hands. As I've said, if it is all about giving, we are standing on one foot. But to prosper, we must do something with our hands. When we have nothing to do, probably, it may become very difficult even for God to bless us. Sindio? When you are doing nothing with your hands, ile wakati ufanyi kazi na mikono yako, it becomes even very difficult for a blessing to locate you. Sindio? So if we are even to quote some people in the Bible, my Bible is very old, but it means it has been used. Sindio? Nasema Bible yangu ni mzee, but it means imetumika. Na imetumika vizuri. If we are to put some people in the Bible, let's use one example of the apostles. Apostle Paul, for example. There's a man who was very deep in the word or in the gospel, and he had so many followers. So this is a man who was actually qualified to sit back and wait for tithes, sit back and wait for offerings and giving followers, and he would have been very okay. Sindio? Tuseme kwa kilugha yetu ni mtu survive. Yeah? Ni mtu ange survive with offerings, with givings of his followers. Someone who would have survived on tithes. But in Acts, give us Acts 20, Acts chapter 20. Give us Acts chapter 20 verse 34. I'm going to read mine. This Paul who was writing these Acts. He says, yes, you yourself know that these hands have provided for my necessities and for those who are with me. Yeah, so his hands were providing for his necessities. Verse 35, I have shown you in every way by labeling like this that you may support the weak. And remember the words of our Lord Jesus, that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Sidio? Umebarikiwa sana mwenye anapeana kuliko mwenye ana receive. So this is Paul talking about working with his own hands to provide for his necessities. So, Pastor, I'm calling him Pastor Paul. Apostle Paul would have legitimately waited for offerings, tithes, and givings, and he would have not worked. But he was not idling around. But you must start somewhere. In 1 Corinthians, naenda haraka. We have very short time. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, twende haraka. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 12, there's still Paul. I'm using Paul as an example, who is a good example in the gospel. 1 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 12. He was writing and he said, and we labor, working with our own hands, being revealed. We bless, even being prosecuted. We endure. Even during prosecution, he was still working. And I hope you know Paul was actually a tent maker, something that he used to do even when he was persecuting Christians, but he continued with the same even after he was converted. So we must not mislead people to just pray, to just give and wait for a blessing. Okay? In Philippians chapter 4 verse 13, we all know that verse. Kila mtu anajua Philippians chapter 4 verse 13, that I can do all things. I can do all things. So Paul was using his time very well. He used to preach the gospel, he used to write. At the same time, he used to do tents. Do you know most of the people Paul met, he was actually meeting them when he was working, because most of them were his clients, or he made them his clients. Same case to our pastors, ndio? Pastor anatembea, unasikia ako Ruai, 2 hours ako Githurai, and he's meeting so many people. So our pastor is a good example with his family, of course. Our mom. So Paul met most of the people around his circle while he was working, making tents. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. 2 Thessalonians, please open that for us. The second epistle of Paul to the Thessalonians, chapter 3 verse 7. Chapter 3 verse 7. I'll read it. If you yourself know how you ought to follow us, for we were not disorderly among you. So we must not be disorderly. As Christians, we must not be disorderly. Nor did we eat anyone's bread free of charge. So there is the apostle. He was not eating anyone's bread free of charge, but he worked with labor and toil night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you. There is an apostle. That we may not be a burden to any of you. Not because we do not have authority. So, as I said, Paul would have legitimately waited for the followers to provide for him as he preached the gospel. So he is saying he and other apostles close to him, they had authority over many, but they chose not to eat anyone's bread free of charge, but they worked with labor and toil day and night. They did not have authority over them, but to make ourselves an example of how you must follow us. So this is the apostle with other apostles around him. They worked so hard that they may be an example to his followers or to their followers, that they may also work to even help the weak. So this is the Bible telling us. Let me just finish. Verse 10. For even when we were with you, we commanded you this. If anyone will not work, can you finish? If anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. So if we are not working, it is actually a command that we should not eat. What will happen if we do not eat? We cease to exist. Sidio? We cease to exist. Verse number 11 says, for we hear that there are some who walk among you in a disorderly manner, not working at all, but are busy bodies. Now we all know a busybody is the devil's workshop. Is a devil's workshop. So there must be a point of contact where God will bless us. Let's find something to do. And if there is no job, what we may call a job or work, we use that time to search, to learn, and even to get a skill. That is part of work. Because in the future, you'll be working. Today we had a very good time with the junior youth out there with Mr. Wameti. And we really engaged on so many issues. So if we are not working, we are commanded not to eat. What happens if we don't eat? We cease to exist. So there must be no idleness in the church. We must not idle around saying that we are Christians, praying day and night, waiting for bread, and it only happened once when God provided manna. It only happened once. I don't think it's happening again. God is not sending manna to us. We must work, because manna is actually the Old Testament. Now don't mistaken me, because giving and tithing are biblical, and they have increased men. But you tithe after working, isn't it? You tithe after working. You tithe what you have paid for, or what you have been paid for, what you have worked for. So you tithe after working. Now in Ephesians, Paul said, let him that stole, mwenye alikuwa anaimba. In Ephesians, Paul was saying, let him that stole steal no more, but rather labor. And he goes ahead, that is Ephesians chapter 4, I think verse 28. You can go there. Can you go there? Ephesians 4, verse 28. He says, let him that stole, really alikuwa naimba, and Pastor Teresia deals with them. Mwenye alikuwa naimba, aache kuimba, but rather labor, and give to the poor. That's how it finishes. Inamaliza hivyo. Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give to those who have need. Now you can imagine transforming from a thief, to start working with your hands so that you may give the needy. It's not an easy thing. It's easy, but there is grace. Why am I saying about work as Christians? Because working, there are so many areas of work, even politicians, and some of us have been in that field. And we also work with these people, the politicians. We can have politicians who are in fire for Christ, like Daniel. Daniel, working very closely with the king, currently very close with the president, but praying 3 days a day in a very corrupt country that does not know God, and actually wanted to convert people like Daniel from his faith to join that faith. So Daniel is in the midst of people who do not know God, very close in power. We can have politicians, we say it's a dirty game, but we have politicians who are in fire for Christ. In Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, can you open for us that? Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. I want to read that chapter. Proverbs 4:23. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs. I think I'm missing that. I don't know which part of Proverbs that says, in all labor there is profit. In all labor there is profit. The book of Psalms, chapter 128. Psalms 128. Psalms 128, verse 2. It says, when you eat the labor of your hands, you shall be happy, and it shall be well with you. When you eat the labor of your hands, it shall be well with you. Some of us, you see, we started sometimes back with very little or nothing. I was explaining to my wife sometimes back, Pastor. Sometimes I used to stay in Rongai, somewhere in Rongai, sleeping on the floor on a very tiny mattress. Then she was making a joke that, hey, na watu hutoka mbali. But I was doing something in Rongai so that I could not sleep hugly. It was just after college. So I was doing something so that I could not call my parents from home or siblings to support me. It is not a very good thing, Sidio? Especially if you like some independence. It's not a very good thing to keep on calling people for your survival. So Proverbs chapter, as I finish, Proverbs 21, Proverbs chapter 21, verse 25. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 25, give us that. The desire of the lazy man kills him. This version says, the desire of a lazy man kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. For his hands refuses to labor. Actually, the New Testament tells us that if you don't work, don't eat. It connects very well with this, that the desires of a lazy man kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. He covets greedily all day long, He covets greedily. Tamaa, sindio? Tamaa ni vitu za wengine. He covets greedily all day long, but the righteous gives and does not spare. Yeah? The righteous gives and gives more and does not spare. So the lazy refuses to work, and that only kills him. All day long, they think about what they like to have. They think about what they would like to have. Yeah? Ile tunaita aje? You're only thinking about what you like to have. But the righteous gives and gives generously. So where does the righteous get something to give? Yeah? From the labor of his hands. As I finish, the foundation of prosperity and prosperity with integrity is finding something to do with our hands. Nataka kumalizia hapo. Lakini why I'm talking about prosperity with integrity. Take an example. The easiest way you can explain integrity. Kama umewahi panda nyumba mrefu sana, let's say 5 stories, uko pale juu kabisa. There are 3 ways you can get down there. There are 3 ways you can get to the floor. You can get to the floor from a very tall building. One is you walk through the stairs. Says iko na stairs. You can walk through the stairs mpaka the ground floor. If it is more advanced, you can use a lift. Sidio? To get to the to the ground floor. You can also jump, sidio? Tunataka kufika pale chini. So you can use the stairs, you can use the lift, or you can. Now those 3 options will get you down there. Si ni kweli? Tunataka kushuka. Bora ufike pale chini. Now among the 3, which is the fastest? Which is the fastest? Ni gani fastest? Si ni kuruka. A few seconds na utakuwa pale chini. Sidio? Lakini what happens after that? Yeah? Sikuisha wewe? Si maneno yako kuisha? Nataka kumalizia hapo because I don't need to explain.